So this video is going to be a little different. It's unscripted or unplanned, if you will. But this last month in the Flourish Collective, we were talking about simplicity. And it sounds so kind of wah-wah at times, but so many of us are busy or overworked or feel like we need to do the next thing or the next, or we want to add more and more to our lives. I was recently at a Bible study and someone said, we need to read the Bible more. We need to do all this more. And I kind of bristled at that internally. I just thought, okay, whenever I bristle at something, I'm always like, Lord, what is that about? And it really was about me finding the gift of simplicity being actually really essential for a life of faith, a life of robust faith. That it's actually in the paradox of when we let go and do less and have less or use less, that we actually feel more full. I think oftentimes when we want to add more and more to our life, it's because we're trying to arrive to a certain place. And while yes, sometimes we do lack and we do need maybe more resources, more knowledge, more of an experience. That is true. However, when I was thinking about faith and how actually when we let go of the things that don't serve us, when we actually subtract, that we're going to end up having more. The video that I did a month or two ago about the 13 things that I quit to simplify my spiritual life, I got a ton of comments about how it resonated with people. And so that really inspired me to then process it more deeply and intentionally in our group. And then as I've been reading scripture, I've been finding scripture really speaks about this, that sometimes the whole red car theory, you've probably heard that, where it's like someone tells you that, I'm totally botching this. Oh, look for a red car, you're going to find it. Or maybe you're at a lot looking at cars and you find a red car that you like. Now, whenever you're driving on the freeway in your old car, you're just going to see red cars everywhere. The truth is red cars were always there, but because now you have associated red car with your desire, or a red car is now in your focus of your life, you're then going to see it everywhere. And so simplicity is one of those things where the more we start to simplify, and the easier things get, then the more simplicity impacts our life. It's kind of like a compounding effect, like compounding interest. And so for those of us who are feeling burnt out or feel like we're doing all the things, or we want to add one more thing, simplifying our life and our spiritual life is one of the best things, because life is complicated. Let me tell you, things can be really complicated. And so this verse I'm going to share with you is from 1 Timothy. It's 6, I believe, 6:6. 1 Timothy 6:6. And it says, "Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave. So if you have enough food and clothing, let us be content." And I have found that that is so true in my life. The more I simplify practices in my business, the more I simplify even my prayer life. So I used to think, well, I need to do this amount of Bible reading. I need to read this devotional. I need to ask these questions. I need to have a certain amount of time for contemplation. And then when I thought about the 80-20 principle, which is 20% of what we do produces 80% of the results. It's more of like a business, or it's like a theory, if you will. It's not really a theory. It's more of just, this tends to generally be true. So I thought about my spiritual life in response to, sorry, I'm like totally jumping in this video, in response to this guy who had said in the Bible study, we need to do more, read more, be more, giving, and all these more, which just felt like a weight of more things. I just thought, Lord, one, what are you calling me to? Which is always the first question I want to ask. What is God doing? Because there can be a lot of false calls, a lot of false invitations that just lead us to burnout. And if it's leading you to burnout, I find that it's not from God. It's from either our own desires or even the enemy's influence or the world's pressure. Lord, so what are you inviting me into? And then 2, what gives me the most impact spiritually? What is actually the most fruitful? Or if you like the word productive, sometimes people bristle at that word, but even enjoyment, being with somebody, can be productive in the sense of it's producing life. And so simplicity is actually about productivity in your spiritual life. If we don't rest, we are going to be worthless to the next day. Not worthless, but we are going to have a harder time doing the things that we need to. We're not going to be as present. So if you don't take care of yourself, if we don't rest and recharge, if we don't spend time with God in a way that nurtures our soul, nurtures our spiritual life, So finding the things in our life that are actually the things that bring us to contentment, as Paul's writing to Timothy, that godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. We brought nothing with us as we came into the world, and we're going to take nothing out. So meaning right here is enough. What God gave you as you is enough. And that, I believe, is the power to a simple life. It's a subtle power because it's not extravagant. It's not using a ton of effort. It's really just being with God in the ways that are really most fruitful for us individually. And that can look differently for all of us. And so there's this permission and this freedom to live a simple life that brings us closer to God. He's always with us. But I believe that's the power of simplicity, is letting go of the things that are distractions, even if they're good things. The more I simplify my schedule, the more I don't put on my calendar, the more actually I find that I see God in my daily life. And I've learned to accept being bored. I realized this last month, actually, as we all focused as a group on simplicity, all the areas of life that weren't simple came up in my mind. Things that I was overcomplicated. I was trying to tick all these boxes around something. And I was like, wait, what is going to be the most beneficial in this practice? For example, me sending out an email. I'm like, what if I could just send one email versus 4? So cutting things that don't necessarily matter or deleting things off my schedule that I felt like I had to do has been such a gift to helping me simplify. So I'm curious, what are the things for you that God may be inviting you to lay down, to just center around His contentment and His presence in your life, that He's enough, that what you're doing is enough, and that maybe you actually can let go of some things to make some more space for God or for the things that are truly life-giving. And so one of the helpful ways to do that is actually to do a time audit, to look at all the things that you're doing in your life, because it's so much easier to look at tangible, practical things. What are you doing in your life? And then what is giving you more energy or what is draining you? Some things are gonna just be draining, and they're also responsibilities that you have. Maybe it's taking care of your family. I don't know what those are for you. You know what works for you. But finding more of the things that give us life, that are simple, that we can, again, do more of, is going to bring us more joy. And I found that when we simplify our spiritual life, and all of our life is spiritual, I believe, but when we simplify it, we actually have a ton more power. We're so much more present. We can actually deal with problems when they come up. We can respond in love to the people in our life. So I encourage you to think about, what can I get rid of in my life? And if that video about 13 things is helpful, awesome. But I encourage you also to search the scriptures. And as you do, look at the ways that God is really inviting us into simplicity. It doesn't need to be super complicated. I think with our overprogrammed, it's cool that we have all these programs and these creative elements from church life or even all of our lives online. There's so many different things vying for our attention, but what could you make simple? Maybe it's deleting all the apps on your phone that don't serve you. Maybe it is eating simple meals so you're not spending a ton of time in the kitchen. That for me has been such a gift, to simplify my meals, to reduce the amount of times I go to the grocery store, because those things just take time. This is not something you do overnight. It's something that you do as a process. And it's definitely helpful to do with a group of people that are also doing it. I have a couple of friends that have a little more complicated lives, so it's harder to connect over these things. But those who are living in simplicity, is just, so there's so much encouragement when we have conversations, and they're just empathetic and understand. Anywho, those are my ramblings for the day. How have you found simplicity benefiting your life? And to what degree do you feel maybe addicted to busyness? Recently, I was like, I want to add another class or do another thing in the Flourish Collective. And then I just heard the Lord say, Maryl, it's okay to be in a rhythm, like to be just doing what you've been doing. I oftentimes like to chase the next fun, exciting thing. It can feel exciting to have a project or something hard to work on. So I've had to really look at that and go, ooh, I like that a little bit. And when my season doesn't have that, can I be present to the season that I'm in, which things aren't super hard right now. That doesn't mean they won't be in the future, but letting things be simple actually can be really life-giving. And I found that so much to be true in my life. So I will see you in the next video.